Can you believe it? Rabbits actually get to dig burrows, hop around, and still get nice and plump for market right on schedule. How the heck does Spain manage millions of rabbits without even using cages? Is raising rabbits without cages for real effective? Or is it just some marketing gimmick from the modern farming industry? In today's video, we're going to break down one of the most talked about farming setups in Europe right now, Spain's cage-free rabbit farming model, to find out why some farms decided to ditch the whole industrial cage system for good, how they turn a regular field into a smart home where rabbits can roam free, the upsides and the downsides hiding behind the humane image of this model. And most importantly, we're going to dig deep and answer the question: is this the humane future of agriculture? Or just some PR fluff all wrapped up in green grass and surveillance cameras? If you're looking for a fresh, unique take where farming ain't just about how much you can produce but also a way of life, stick around for this video. 'Cause right now, we're going from the old school farms to the cage-free setup, from being skeptical to maybe getting a little surprised. Have you ever pictured a farm where there ain't no cages, no metal bars, no enclosures, no clanging of steel every time it's feeding time? In the industrial farming biz, especially with rabbits, which are known to be kinda skittish and get spooked easily, cages seem like they're just part of the deal, no way around it. But on some farms over in Spain, something's going on that's got the whole agriculture world paying attention. Rabbits being raised totally without cages. They ain't locked up. They ain't controlled by no metal frames. Heck, they even get to run around in an environment that's almost like the wild, but they're still being watched over with some pretty high-tech gear. Sounds like some green future dream, but there are plenty of folks who are scratching their heads. Is this a groundbreaking, humane way to farm? Or just some fancy show to jack up the price? To get why folks would want to ditch the cages, you gotta look at the cold, hard facts. Most industrial rabbits worldwide are crammed into super tight spaces. In a shed that's maybe a few dozen yards long, you got hundreds of rabbits all squished together, usually with only a few square inches to even turn around. Artificial light, wire mesh floors, the racket of machines, and a short life, from birth, growing up, to getting slaughtered. It all happens in less than 80 days. According to this group called CIWF, Compassion in World Farming, industrial rabbits are currently raised in some of the most suffocating conditions out of all the animals we raise for meat. They're stuck in living spaces so small that they get stressed out real easy, get hurt, and even die from just plain panic. It's a tough pill to swallow, but these sensitive little critters are being pushed to their limit in an environment that's totally wrong for what they are. In Spain, the rabbit farming industry is large-scale, but it is facing pressure from both society and export markets, especially France and Germany, where consumers increasingly prioritize animal welfare. The European market is gradually shifting, and what is remarkable is, a series of Spanish farmers began switching to the cage-free model, not because of mandatory policies, but because of economics. These farmers discovered, if they could create a more humane rabbit meat product, they could sell it for double, even triple the price. And more importantly, they began to realize that free-range rabbits not only live healthier, but also get sick less often if well managed. Can you even imagine it? An animal that's always been associated with cages, now running free in open spaces, but not out of control at all. This ain't no wildlife documentary or some eco-friendly PR stunt. This is a real model that's operating every single day on farms in Spain. When you hear the term cage-free, you might picture a chaotic scene. Rabbits running all over the place, digging burrows, fighting each other, or escaping into the woods. But the cage-free model in Spain is totally different. It's a semi-natural system, but controlled super tightly with technology. The rabbits are raised in large land plots ranging from about 2,150 to 5,400 square feet, divided by soft fences, usually netting about 4 feet high, enough to protect against wild animals like foxes, weasels, or stray dogs. But it doesn't feel like confinement. Inside each enclosure, There's naturally grown grass or a mix of industrial grasses, with high and low mounds of earth scattered around to create a varied terrain. This is super important for encouraging movement and reducing stress for these sensitive rabbits. But if you think just letting rabbits out on a field is all there is to it, hold your horses for the next part. What's about to be revealed will make you rethink the whole freedom thing. Not everyone gets to live in paradise. Before a rabbit gets released into the open environment, it has to be selected. This might sound kinda strange, but in reality it's a strict process, almost like recruitment. The question is, what's the standard? And here's the answer. The farms use a system to check behavior, reactions, and the ability to get along with others to decide who gets to go outside and who has to stay put. The rabbits have to pass tests for health, how well they adapt, and their personality. Rabbits that are too aggressive or too weak are usually eliminated or kept separately. This system is like an animal training program before they go into the open environment. But hold on a sec. Freedom doesn't mean leaving supervision behind. Right now, you're gonna see how modern technology has turned these tiny rabbits into living data. Each rabbit has a tiny microchip attached, kinda like the tracking system for athletes. When it gets close to a feeding, drinking, or sleeping station, the system records real-time data. How much it eats, how much it moves around, if it's having any health problems, and if a rabbit suddenly gets lazy, stops eating, or just hangs around in one spot for 12 hours straight, the farmer gets an immediate alert. The animal world ain't just about feelings anymore. It's a data network. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. In the next part, you're going to see how freedom can change the very nature of behavior and create some truly weird rabbit societies. In the open space, rabbits don't fight each other over space anymore. They naturally divide into groups, living in little soft social clusters of 3 to 6 rabbits, avoiding clashes, and surprisingly, they start communicating with low sounds to warn each other, instead of being aggressive. According to research in Spain, rabbits living in this environment show up to an 85% reduction in self-biting, stress, or depression. And here's a cool phenomenon. Their endocrine glands release more endorphins, kinda like the exercise effect in humans. But it's not just about behavior. There's also something that traditional farmers just can't believe. This model hardly uses any antibiotics. How can that be? One of the most common reactions when people hear about open raising is, how do they not get cross-contamination? No confinement, no infection. Why this seemingly paradoxical situation? Because when livestock live in well-ventilated spaces with natural air circulation, the risk of respiratory diseases, which are super common in closed barns, drops significantly. Not to mention, getting more exercise and being less stressed boosts the animal's natural resistance considerably. Plus, this model usually divides the farm into independent groups. If one group has a problem, it can be isolated and dealt with separately, limiting the spread to the whole farm. But antibiotics ain't the only reason this model is so sought after in Europe. Another factor, less talked about, carries way more weight. When European consumers started looking for not just meat, but ethical meat, the cage-free farming model suddenly became a really valuable commodity. In those strict organic food markets, free-range rabbit meat can sell for 2 to 3 times the price of industrial rabbits, not just because of the quality, but because of the image it represents. Chefs describe free-range rabbit meat as having just the right amount of chewiness, a subtle sweetness, and a natural aroma, something they say you just can't get from caged rabbits. But even more impressive is the new 3-word slogan, No antibiotics, no stress, no cages. Consumers feel like they're contributing to a more humane production chain. And businesses, besides selling food, are also selling ethics, a value that industrial cages can never deliver. But after that pretty picture, is this actually a profitable business model? Or just a fancy game for folks rich enough to choose? To really get it, we gotta look at the other side of the coin. The cage-free model ain't some romantic eco-dream. It's a combo of behavioral science, data technology, and a new way of thinking about farming. Rabbits get to live like rabbits, but under smart supervision. Freedom, but not chaos. And the final product, meat that's tastier, has fewer chemicals, and is easier to sell in a market with high standards. But is this model really economically sound? Or is it just for small farms that go big and live off of consumer curiosity? Freedom, especially in farming, has never been free. A high-standard open-range rabbit farm needs a lot. Wide open land, modern sensor systems, skilled labor, and constant upkeep and running costs. The total cost of production can be 3 to 4 times higher than traditional cage farming. On a small scale, this equation can still work out. But once you want to expand, the economic hurdles become huge. And that's not all. Rabbits come with their own special risks. Just one strange noise, and the whole group can panic, trampling each other and leading to mass casualties. When that happens, no cages also means no control. So is this model a humane step forward, or just an expensive dead end for a small group of conscious consumers? Is this really ecological fairness, or just a highly priced form of ethics in the market? The answer ain't at either extreme. Cage-free farming isn't the only future of agriculture, but it's also not just some green trick to play on consumer emotions. It exists as a parallel path, smaller, more selective, and aimed at premium value. This model might not be right for mass application like industrial chicken or beef farming, but it creates a selective direction. It can't feed the whole world, but it can change how the world thinks about agriculture. In Spain, after the COVID-19 shock, a lot of cooperatives looked like they wouldn't make it because they couldn't keep up with cheap meat prices. But it was the free-range rabbit farming model, something that used to be seen as fancy, that saved them. Because at that point, they didn't need to mass produce. They just needed to stick to their promise of ethics. And the premium market came to them. Cage-free rabbits, thought to be going against the grain, actually became an escape route for the whole industry, at a time when everything seemed to be getting swept away by the wave of industrialization. Some changes in agriculture don't come from groundbreaking technology, and they don't come from imposed policies either. They come from one small action, opening the cage doors. Just that simple. But when farmers decided to stop locking rabbits in metal cages, they didn't just change a habit. They were challenging the entire logic of 20th century production. Instead of speeding up to be cheaper and faster, they chose to slow down. Instead of having complete control, they chose to compromise with nature. And instead of catering to the mass market, they built their own market, where a rabbit's right to run in the sunshine is also part of the product's value. It's a quiet revolution, but enough to shake an industry that seemed to be defined by assembly lines and metal cages. So, what would you choose? Cheaper rabbit meat, produced faster, but from cramped cages? Or a rabbit that got to live in the sunshine, grazing on natural grass, even if it costs twice as much? That's not an easy question to answer, but for sure, Humane agriculture won't be some far-off dream if consumers are willing to ask questions. And if you think the story about rabbits is the most unique thing in agriculture, you should wait for the next video. An animal that's not noisy, not destructive, doesn't need a lot of land, but is making the whole livestock industry rethink things. A creature that's gentle enough to live near people, tough enough to survive in harsh places, and is becoming the choice for sustainable farms all over the world. Don't miss it. Because maybe, just maybe, the best animal to raise ain't cows, goats, or sheep, but a quiet creature walking in the mist of the Andes. But this time, we'll explore them in a different country. Any guesses where?